This episode of the Lunduke Show is brought to you by System76, who are sitting in the studio today, so I'm not going to talk about them anymore. Pogo Linux, who you can find over at pogolinux.com. They make really kick-ass servers, all running Linux. You can find out more at pogolinux.com, like I said previously, pogolinux.com, and Lulzbot, the adorable 3D printers that you see sitting right there, that I use way too often and annoy my wife because I'm in my garage printing random 3D objects instead of doing other things around the house. You can find out more over at lulzbot.com, and of course, the insatiable, the beautiful, the wonderful smelling viewers like you. All right, today we're going to all talk to, so first of all, System76 guys are here. Carl, Jeremy. Carl's the head honcho over at System76. Jeremy is kind of an interesting dude. He's the main guy over at the Redux OS, plus he does a whole lot of crazy engineering at System76. Say hello to the entire internet, everybody.
Hello Internet.
Entire internet.
Well done. You guys nailed that. All right. So obviously we're talking about IME stuff, right? Last week you guys announced that you are patching to disable the Intel Management Engine on your whole product line. And so I'm like, well, since you guys sponsor the show, I have to demand that you come on my show and explain to me how you're doing all this. This is the benefits of having you as a sponsor, really. I get to demand these things. So I want to know, first of all, Jeremy, Carl, I'll let one of you do this. The overview. What is, for those of you who are new to this, what is the IME, the Intel Management Engine, and why would you want it disabled?
The Intel Management Engine is, it's a piece of firmware paired with a piece of hardware that's on every new Intel chipset. And what it does is it allows out-of-band management of an Intel processor, and it has ring -3 access to the CPU, to the RAM, to the PCI Express. To
what is ring -3 access for those who don't know that? Because that's
right.
A weird statement to me. It's when I found out there was a negative rings, I was very confused at first because I thought that's awesome. I mean, how far deep in the negative in the ring space can you go?
Well, it's kind of a misnomer because in the Intel CPU there are only 3 rings. 4. There's ring 0, 1, 2, and 3. And typically only ring 0 and 3 are utilized. Ring 0 is where kernel code runs. Ring 3 is where user space code runs. Very few operating systems use 1 and 2. But what the negative ones are, -1 is the hypervisor ring, whereby a virtualizer can take control of a system that's running as ring 0. Ring -2 is system management mode, which is typically implemented in the BIOS. Ring -3 is simply something that we're saying about a system that has privileges above all of those. So
gotcha. That's God mode, basically.
Yeah, it's the God chip. It can't be disabled by the BIOS. It can't be disabled by the virtualizer, by the kernel, by user space code. Nothing can disable it. Well, not quite.
Okay. All right. So now, until now, I mean, this has kind of been the holy grail. We've talked about it on this show a few other times. Pretty much every tech news site has covered this, at least in some degree, with certain levels of paranoia and freaky outiness.
Right.
So you guys are disabling it on everything you're shipping, like the whole kit and caboodle?
We're starting with laptops. And the reason is that the laptops have homogeneous firmware, so applying the fix is straightforward. Our desktops, we have different motherboard vendors for our desktops, sometimes Asus, sometimes Gigabyte. That firmware is different, and we will eventually, if we can, try to disable the ME.
Good.
Desktops as well.
Nice. So how exactly do you disable this super secret God mode of these chips? How do you do that?
You disable it by doing one of 2 things. And what we've been doing and what Purism has been doing has been to set the high assurance platform bit in the flash descriptor and remove all of the code modules that's possible to remove from the Intel ME.
I think it's important to go into what high assurance platform is. It's a bit ironic, but the NSA developed high assurance platform, which is a platform to make a computer more secure. And part of that platform is disabling the ME chip that Intel provides on all hardware.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So by disabling something that our customers don't use and don't need, the platform is more secure for them.
And more reliable.
Right.
Yeah.
and more reliable. Yeah, essentially, the more code that you're running that you don't need, the more opportunity there is for vulnerabilities and reliability issues. So it closes a number of issues by turning it off.
Right.
Nice. Oh, okay, so now how do you go about doing that? Like, what's the procedure for someone who has, let's say, one of your laptops? How do they go about actually doing that?
If you have one of our laptops, wait for our firmware updater to come to you. But what we do,
the official way, yes.
right. What we do and what we're going to deliver to you is we archive all of our BIOS files in one place.
Okay.
And I've written a set of Rust utilities to operate on firmware files.
Of course you did it in Rust. That's your deal.
Of course.
Of course.
These files are checked for certain attributes, including whether the ME is disabled or not. We disable the ME by using ME Cleaner, which is a really great project that sets the hat bit and removes a bunch of code modules that are not necessary for the ME for the computer to boot. If you go too far, by the way, the computer can shut down 30 minutes after booting.
Really?
Yeah, if you remove too many code modules.
So now the ME is still running Minix. It still runs the system, right? That allows it to boot the rest of the system, right?
That is a very important thing to remember, that Intel still has not delivered with the high assurance platform bit the real way that we want to see this addressed, which is to have the ME not present in hardware.
Yes.
Because the issue is that removing the code modules, the way ME Cleaner does it, you still have the ME in a potentially vulnerable state when the system is booting. The ME gets a message or sends a message to the BIOS and then receives a response from the BIOS. After that handshake process, the BIOS takes over hardware initialization and the ME becomes disabled.
Oh, that makes sense.
Until that process takes effect, the ME is still active and potentially vulnerable. Even if it's for a millisecond, even if it's for half a second, that period of time, the ME has access to hardware components. And we don't know, because it's closed source, what is possible.
Thank you, Andrew Tannenbaum. So, okay, this kind of makes sense. So basically then ME is kind of acting as like a almost pre-bootloader sort of a thing for the whole system then.
Right.
Interesting. All right. So do you think that there's actually any chance of Intel and possibly, AMD, who has kind of similar stuff going on, of actually releasing this in an open way in the future? Do you think that's even likely? I personally don't know. I've sent off, some requests to them, but for obvious and very good reasons, I'm sure it's kind of been a no comment thus far. And as I kind of expected. What do you guys think?
I think what's probably most likely is that there will be better techniques to manage hardware than proprietary chips on the motherboard. Our customers don't. AMT is the primary tool that's used with the for out of band management on hardware, but there are much better techniques. It's like RAID today on a server. RAID isn't a modern technique for managing the storage that's on a server. The ME is not a modern technique for managing the hardware that's on a LAN or in an enterprise. And so as those better technologies replace the ME functionality, then hopefully that's not required any longer.
Right. As better things come about, then Intel will probably adopt those better things. That's a pretty straightforward way.
Competition.
Right.
Right. Something will happen there. Someone will use better things, and then that will be the thing.
I don't personally think that the PSP or the ME source code would ever be released, because I think there are licenses preventing the release of such things.
Yeah, I would be curious. We've seen when Google did their now semi-infamous presentation about how they're kind of working around this sort of thing in their server farm, they kind of listed out the things that they think are in there.
Yeah.
But there's basically a big giant asterisk next to every item where it's like, so web server is in there. Details about which are very hazy. But it's interesting.
We've been able to decompile the ME. So for a while, that was not possible, but Positive Technologies was able to reverse engineer the compression scheme used by the ME firmware. They were able to decompile it, and then since it's a simple x86 processor, they were able to read through the source code and see what exactly happens when you set the hap bit, what happens when you remove the code modules, to semi-verify that it is actually in a disabled state when you apply ME Cleaner.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm glad they were able to do that. That makes me feel much better about things. Since it's running on an x86 processor, what do we know about that processor? Like for me, like as soon as I hear about that, my mind immediately thinks I could be running all sorts of weird stuff on there. Like that would be awesome. Like I want that for myself. Like what is it? And like, do we know much about the specs of that processor?
Well, the good news is, Brian, you can run lots of things on there because there are open vulnerabilities that allow you to do code exploit. So you can run whatever you want. What we know about it, it's very approximate details.
Okay.
So we know that it's a 32-bit 486 style core, but it's custom. It's clearly custom.
Oh, see, I kind of want a 486 anyway, just for nostalgia purposes. Put
Yeah.
FreeDOS on there.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
Run a copy of like Civilization 2, Windows 3.1, just because you can. I really hope somebody out there is working on that project just so they can say they did it.
I'm sure people are trying to port Wine to Minix 3, so that will be available pretty soon here. And since it has access to your video card, I'm sure you could output video.
Right? It has access to everything, right? I mean, it can access everything on your system, is my understanding, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's got to happen. I mean, that has to. Just from a moral standpoint, as nerds and a community of nerds, we have to find a way to make that happen.
Well, this is almost like video game consoles and iPhones.
Yeah.
They both have signed firmware, but eventually somebody figures out how to jailbreak them.
Bingo. Right? You have to. Even if you don't even know what you want to use it for.
Yeah.
You are just morally obligated to eventually learn how to do so and brick a few devices in the process.
Well, there would be no hardship over bricking a few MEs.
I have to ask, as you guys are testing this and, developing a nice solution for everyone to do it, how many machines of yours have you managed to brick as you're getting the process just right? Because I mean, like I haven't done anything on any machines because I am confident I will manage to screw up a flag somewhere and I will brick my machines. I've been waiting for the official thing,
Here, Carl, why don't you speak for a couple minutes? I'll be right back.
Okay, he's going to get the fun tools. All right, so
nice.
We have a problem here sometimes. Being adventurous technologists, and we tend to brick motherboards.
Of course you do.
Quite often, actually, because we want to understand how they're working, what's going on inside of them, and and dive into those proprietary bits that we'd rather have control over.
Right.
So when we break something, we needed a way to bring it back to life, so we didn't have to keep replacing motherboards and throwing money away.
Oh, and he's got a gadget. What
here it is.
So this is a Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
And it has a ROM clip on the end.
Here, move that to your right a little bit. There you go. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So it really is that simple. You brick a machine, you never really brick a machine. When you are a manufacturer and you have the signing code for any ROMs, and for anything you guard, and B, you have a SPI flasher, then what you do when you brick is you simply reflash the original BIOS and keep working. And also there are other additional firmware debugging utilities. There's the EHCI debug, which you can set up on an Arduino. You plug it into an EHCI port, and the firmware will dump out debugging output to that device.
Oh, that's cool.
There's also the port 80 debugger, which is used on older motherboards. We haven't had to do that, but if we were going to delve into core boot, we would probably need to start using those kinds of tools.
So that seems like a fairly reasonable transition point. So you guys are kind of, freeing us up a little bit here. what about the rest of it? What about things like core boot and LibreBoot and FreeBoot and LovelyBoot and whatever the current name of those boot projects are at the moment? I mean,
Sure.
But at the highest levels, we believe that every piece of code within a computer should be free, from the firmware all the way up. Doing that in a way that's efficient and practical, and it enables us to ship continuously and reliably is a bit more challenging today. We are carving off pieces here and there to finally reach that point, which Jeremy can talk about, the things we're thinking about and the things we're working on.
Jeremy, care to elucidate?
I will elucidate the whole world. If you don't know, AMI is the worst possible company to deal with. So what AMI is basically, it's a firmware monopoly. The majority of motherboard manufacturers use AMI to develop their firmware. They get with AMI a very long, very restrictive NDA that they have to sign before they get AMI source code. Thankfully, I have not signed such an NDA, so I'm allowed to work on core boot. But something you should be aware of is anyone who works on AMI firmware may not be able to work on core boot firmware.
Seriously?
Yeah, if they see any of the source of an AMI firmware.
That sucks.
You're right.
That's very difficult to deal with.
Well, I think one of the worst parts is that the firmware isn't very good.
Yeah, if
it was great software, maybe it wouldn't be quite so bad.
It's slow, it's low quality.
It's extremely bloated.
But the only reason why it has this market penetration is because Intel delivers up-to-date information to AMI through some mechanism that allows AMI to have support for brand new processor architectures immediately at launch, whereas Core Boot is not able to get this kind of support. They have to wait for the Intel Firmware Support Package, the FSP, to be released for an architecture before they can do anything with a new processor architecture, and that could take 6 months.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they release it for a different market. So our market is, in our supply chain, it moves very quickly. So the moment that Intel releases new chipsets and new CPUs, those plans have already been integrated into new laptop models and new desktop models. We like to consider ourselves a day zero manufacturer, in that when there's new stuff, it costs the same amount as the slower stuff that we were just selling. So offer the new products to customers.
Yeah, you guys have a tendency to just, the moment you can release like anything with a new something lake on it, it comes out. Yeah, that's what you guys do.
We like to move quickly, right? The FSP is designed mostly for embedded use. So these are things like digital signage, point of sale systems, ATMs, things of that nature, which have long lifespans, and they're developing a product that's going to sit on the shelf for 5 years or so.
Right.
That's very different than our business. Very different than what an OEM is. So we're lobbying Intel to move that FSP release sooner to the chipset release.
Got it.
How far we'll get, we're not sure, but
the closer the better. I mean,
we're putting the effort in.
Good. Very good. I mean, I would assume you're probably not alone in that regard. I'm guessing that there's other people in your camp.
Yeah, the other very large company that we think is in the same boat is actually Google.
Yeah.
So
Really?
that's why this seems a little strange for their Chromebooks. They're using Core Boot. So we would expect that they would want the FSP at the same time as the chipset release. But then again, their Chromebooks are kind of at a lower tier market where that time might not be as important.
I never even thought of that before. Yeah, but you're right. That since they would need that.
Right.
Huh.
So maybe we can
Interesting.
team together with Google and
Whatever gets the job done, right? I mean, we got to get it done. Got to get it out there.
There's also RISC-V and open power and competition and those kinds of.
That's reliant on all those things shipping. Open power and RISC-V kind of look awesome, but at least for me, I haven't been able to get my hands on working hardware for them.
The performance profile matters a lot.
Yeah.
Too with these things.
Kind of a lot, right? I mean, yeah, it's kind of critical. I think there's a lot of people like me. There's the extremely paranoid people like me, but even then. I have a nice beefy machine to record this show on right now, and I can't downgrade that machine because then I can't do my show anymore, even if it's way more like open architecture or something like that. I can't move backwards for my studio hardware.
But the good news is we're making enormous progress towards really liberating the computer. I mean, it's been decades and the work of thousands and thousands of engineers to push this idea forward. And we're getting closer and closer to a truly free product, truly free computer.
Awesome.
Firmware is the last huge hurdle.
Yeah. I mean, what's your gut telling you? Like, I mean, you've been in this business for how long? When did you start System76?
12 years ago. So
12 years ago. I mean, so you've been in this game for computer internet equivalents of a century. So, I mean, you know in your gut how things are going. What's it tell you about like the trajectory and like the amount of time it takes to get to that point?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to quantify, I suppose, because there are things that have moved forward, and then there's like there's 2 steps forward, and then there's like a half step back. And we still have firmware blobs that we don't want in the kernel, but that's how we get the best wireless that's possible.
Right.
So, and Athros at one point was an open source, had open source firmware, and now the new chips are no longer open source. So, so it's moving in fits and starts. I think we have a unique approach that might help move it along a little bit faster when we get to manufacturing. We're very close to closing a deal on our manufacturing space for desktops. So
can I ask you questions about that?
Yeah,
I wasn't when I asked you guys to come on, it was all about IME but stuff. But I mean, you guys were pretty public about going to the point where you can produce your own, not just systems, but whole cases and, the metal that holds your machines together and actually design your own things. And some of the designs you guys showed me kind of made me salivate and hallucinate for a month. Like, and I'm not the only one. Like Gardner, the Linux gamer who's on the show from time to time, was there with me and got to see some of these. And both of us agreed that we're now very, very sad that we have machines on our desk that are not looking like the ones that you showed us. So, how is it feeling? And do you guys have a thing where you're ready to announce any like timelines to where Brian and Gardner get to be happier with that crazy cool thing that gets on their desk?
Yeah, we can. It'll be 2018.
Wait, no, but that's next year. But that is next year though. Like that's a real window. Like you're not just saying sometime in the next few years as we get forward. Like you're saying next year.
Right. Yeah. We will be. Well, we're going to be cutting metal, I hope, within just a couple of months. The challenge has been something that I did not expect. Finding industrial space in Colorado. It has been.
Is that hard?
Started in January of this year, and we just found 2 spaces that we're working on simultaneously, and one is, and it looks like one we're going to be able to close in the next couple of weeks. But it's taken an entire year.
How is that even possible? It's Colorado, man. I mean, I've been there. You look out and there's chunks of land.
People are growing weed in industrial spaces.
Where weed growth is and industrial is the same type of building.
Gotcha. Okay, that does make.
And they got in the market before we did, which means that the supply is extremely tight.
I gotcha. Okay.
To afford one of these spaces, we might have to start selling drugs too.
They are more expensive, yes. We had to give up. So at first it was okay. We want something that's on the rail line. We want it for this price. We want this size. Okay, so now we would like a place to cut metal,
preferably with roofs and electricity going to it is kind of the goal, I guess.
Yeah.
How cool is it though to say that you're pretty soon in the next few months you're going to begin cutting metal? Like as soon as you said that phrase, that sounds, pardon my French people, but that sounds kind of badass. Like my company's gonna start cutting metal. Like that's awesome.
It is. I can't tell you how exciting I am. This was literally on Friday that one of the buildings agreed to our terms.
Oh.
So
congratulations! Hopefully, fingers crossed, it all works out. But that's awesome.
I can't tell you excited I am about finally getting past this part. So to pull this full circle, I don't think that you can believe in open source and not believe in open hardware designs. I think that they're one and the same thing. So the product we're going to design will be open source, but we also want to start getting open source bits on the inside. So we're working on a open source I/O controller.
What?
That would be a backplane for the drives to go into the desktop, but it would also have an embedded controller to manage fans, for instance, because we have more data than the motherboard has, because we can get data from the operating system, which means we can adjust airflow based on temperature in the GPU as well as the CPU, as well as the sensors on the motherboard. So with that additional data, we can make a more efficient product. But all of that's going to be open source. So there we're taking the strategy is to take as much as we can off of the main board that's proprietary and put it on something open source controlling it, until it's just a tiny bit, the smallest amount that we have to still lobby Intel for to eventually get it there.
That's a pretty reasonable thing, yeah, because then you have to open source less on the board because it's already offloaded.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, guys. I did not know you were working on that. That's awesome. I'm sorry. I'm a little geeking out right now because that's kind of rad. Like, okay, that's cool. I thought we were literally just going to have you guys on and we were just going to talk a little bit about how you were disabling IME. And now I'm really excited for the next couple of years here. This is rad. So, okay, so when you're talking hardware, and, you know, Carl, you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, but just so people understand what you mean when you say kind of open source hardware, what do you mean by that? What is the practical implications from your standpoint of that?
It's the CAD files for the design are open source.
That's kind of just flat out. Like, notice how you didn't hem and haw everyone who's watching. He just literally just blurted it out. Here you go.
That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty simple and yet astonishingly revolutionary.
Yeah, there's going to be a source code repository. There will be source. There will be text files that define the design, and there'll be probably GPL3.
Yeah, the only thing I don't quite understand is our brand is something that's really important to me, and this is some work that we'll have to do. So what this means is that anyone can take the CAD files and they can make this desktop. They can improve upon it. They can change it.
Which is awesome.
They can push those back to us. But the one thing that, like, to protect our reputation and the quality of our product, the only thing I don't think I would be okay with is if somebody put our logo on it and said, "Here, this is the thing I made," and this is because that's like our own name.
Right.
That's like
so if they took your CAD file, modified it, and then started doing stuff with it, you don't know if you'd want necessarily your System76 logo on that modified thing.
Right, because that's we don't know how well they put it together, and they couldn't necessarily represent our manufacturing excellence.
You know, that's not really all that different from, say, like the Firefox to Iceweasel thing, where, you know, it's sort of like, okay, you have a fork of Firefox, you know, you can do whatever you want with the code. Go crazy, guys. Just don't call it exactly Firefox. Call it something that is technically different.
A lot of projects have this kind of thing. Chrome has the same thing. They have a bunch of documentation about how you can use their logo. Firefox, Ubuntu, every distribution usually has that kind of disclaimer about their trademark.
Right.
But we may also do this in a way that it's not just laws that prevent the use of the trademark, because laws can change and laws are kind of useless in the real world. They're not real. They're just things we kind of do and apply. But we would have like
I guess things are a little loose at
a signature. We would have a cryptographic signature embedded in every design that we make that would prove that this design was built at System76.
That's a cool idea. Yeah.
That is a cool idea. I don't know how you do that idea, but that's an awesome idea.
The most important part of it, though, is that it's a design that anyone could download, modify, play with. They could see how a manufacturer that's producing a product actually develops something. And we're using open source tools to create it as well. And
what are you guys using? What do you? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's OpenSCAD. Nice. And what we really like about OpenSCAD is it's kind of an engineer's CAD program. The CAD is all code. Yeah, it's not this cool point and click, build a wall and bend it and do those things. No,
not some WYSIWYG garbage.
We define it all with code. which means it makes it also modular.
Yeah.
We have a design that we can say, okay, there's going to be a mini ITX board in this, but we want to expand this to be an ATX board. So by changing it to ATX, everything just expands.
That's really cool. Like that is the engineer's way to do it. Yeah. Holy moly, guys. With your case designs that you're doing, when you first showed them off, there was a lot of talk about also using wood elements and whatnot in it. Are you guys still going that route?
That's still the plan, yeah.
Okay.
The approach we're taking is that we have a design approach and we have a mechanical engineering approach that worked independently. That way they're not restricted by each other's biases necessarily.
Sure.
Okay. Now we're at the point where we need to reconcile that with the practical effort of actually producing the product.
I guess that does matter. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the next step.
Yeah.
So it's a flexible process until we get to the end, but we have a design agenda and idea in mind, and we have other requirements like ease of using or not ease of use, the ease of servicing the computer. It has to be we're doing the opposite of what everyone does. Instead of making a box that you can't get into or do anything to, we're making a box that you can get into, do whatever you want, and it includes free software on embedded controllers.
That's so cool.
But it's a process. So next we get to take on the challenge and the excitement of taking these ideas and turning them into a real computer that we're going to be shipping.
Oh man, that is jazzy. Like that is exciting, dudes. That is cool. Okay, all right. Timeline on the IME stuff. So for rollout of the IME patches on the laptop line, what are you guys looking at for the full timeline and everything right now?
So we have been testing in-house all of the models that are affected. We're probably going to roll out model by model starting sometime later this week.
Oh, that's quick. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
what model? What model do you think is going to be first? If your gut told you, what's your gut say? You know what your gut says, Jeremy.
I know.
You like blurting things out. You love blurting things out.
I wish I could do everything at the same time, but
that's okay though. Get it right. Get it right, because I think so. There's so many nerds like me who are like, yeah, we want that, and we want that right now. But it's kind of a critical bit, so we can't. Right. This isn't something like we can just update a new version of LibreOffice and it's fine for a day. You guys have got to get it right. So take your time.
We're working with firmware, which is hard to upgrade because if you do something slightly wrong, you can brick a machine.
Exactly.
And if you imagine all of those customers, and we're sending every single one of them one of these. Because we did something wrong.
Just to be clear, I know that myself and many other customers wouldn't mind simply getting some of those because that sounds fun to play with, but I don't think we're capable of it. So what do you think? So what laptop line do you want to hit the first?
Very clear. The computers that have boot guard, we need to approach differently, so they will take longer.
Oh,
that's the Galago and the Lemur.
Okay. Okay, fair.
We will probably start with the Gazelle and Kudu.
Okay.
Which actually have the same motherboard, therefore
that's handy.
Similar firmware.
Yeah, that's convenient.
Then we'll be rolling out on Bonobo and Serval. The Oryx is such a widespread device. It's our best-selling device. That and the Galago sell about the same amount. So we're gonna reach the Oryx after the other devices that have less usage. Because if there are problems out in the field, we don't want the maximum number of customers affected.
That's mathematically reasonable. I get that, yeah.
So then finally, the Galago and Lemur.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
the desktops will be a different timeline. We do have to wait on motherboard manufacturers to send us back information on those.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, we don't have the same relationship as we have with the laptops, where everything is homogeneous on the laptops, and we can really automate the whole process.
This is so cool that you guys are tackling this. I want more. I feel that there's going to be, this is getting lots of press attention. You guys know. I mean, this is clearly getting some people excited. I'm hoping that causes a lot of other people to go, wait a minute. We're going to work on that too. We're gonna do that a little bit. I'm hoping, because I mean it's just good for everybody. So hopefully,
firmware is a fundamental part of how a computer operates, and it doesn't get the attention it should. It's not easy to update. It's
exactly.
It can break a machine if it's done incorrectly. It's not well managed by a lot of manufacturers, and when there is something wrong, they don't even tell their customers. They just put a link on a support page somewhere. Yeah. This is a lot of progress for us.
Awesome. To change topics just for a little bit, how are things going in the pop world? So I'm just very curious, because pop got a lot of attention. How is it going? Have you guys getting a lot of feedback, adoption rates? You guys want to share any of that stuff?
Yeah, well, the feedback we've had has been quite excellent. Customers are choosing it widely over Ubuntu, but I don't know if that's necessarily because it's just the new thing, and so why not give it a shot? But by and large, I don't have any. I think we're getting solid bug reports where there are issues, but there's nothing that's major. Reviews have been solid. Downloads have been solid. We're feeling pretty confident about where it's going.
Yeah.
You guys want to know a secret?
Yeah.
We're recording this show on pop right now. I sit and move the system over the weekend. Just Mike, I'm going to do this. And because it was running great beforehand, so it was a huge gamble. I'm like, it's a studio machine. Sure. You turn off updates on studio machines. Like, you don't touch them ever. They're like, it's like embedded devices. You know what I mean?
Internet though.
Yeah.
So, how do you like pop?
Love it. No problems. None. I didn't encounter a single issue. Nothing. Perfect right out of the gate. Yeah.
Because now I can't get anything out of this, Brian.
I know. I know there's nothing valuable there for you. I'm just saying it's working. It's working fantastically. I mean, before this, the one thing I was really nervous about was I record all of this through Open Broadcasting Studio, and I use a lot of very GPU intensive stuff. And I was moving away from Mate as my desktop, which is, nice and lightweight. It's kind of a standard for like studio type environments, over to current GNOME. And I'm like, oh, that's going to cause me problems. Assuredly, that will cause me problems. Nothing so far. I did like 5 test recordings over the weekend, not a single glitch. And assuming that if people are actually watching this show in a couple hours, then it worked perfectly during this as well. And I had no problems.
I think actually you've got me excited now. I think just to get me rolling a little bit. Making a distribution is incredibly fun. You get to put your mark on what you're delivering to your customer. You get to put the look that you care about, some of your philosophy into the operating system that you're delivering. You get to engage with customers in a unique way. You're taking more responsibility, but at the same time, it's really fun to tweak every single dial to build the perfect thing that you want to deliver. That's we always wanted to leave the OEM or the OS to another company, and actually that worked really well for us for a long time. It's I think the right way to do it, and we would tweak things around the edges because we wanted to provide a pure Ubuntu experience. So that was
important. A canonical experience.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm with you.
But taking this on and the project itself has been an incredible amount of fun for precisely that reason. We get to dial it in exactly as we like to deliver it. And so I'm even more excited. This is like the first step into what the new products that are coming out next year that will be manufacturing in-house. And that's basically, it's you've got an operating system and you've got a piece of hardware in-house designed and developed and manufactured. It's like an open source version of Apple almost, like a generous Apple.
Yeah,
it is.
Is what it is.
It's Apple with ethics and morals.
Right.
Like it is a lot like that. Because I mean, what was it when Steve Jobs first came back to Apple? he did make a valid point. They were able to squeeze out an extra little bit of battery life here and a little bit of performance there because they were one of the few companies that controlled beginning to end, the whole software stack and hardware stack. Like you were talking about, if you're going to move some of the I/O functions off to a separate little card, and then you can then maybe make sure your operating system uses it just right. And if you release that open source, everyone else can too. But then that allows you to do something extra that couldn't necessarily easily be done before.
Right.
And that was Apple's whole strength. And you're basically saying, okay, that's Apple's strength. And then you're ignoring all of the weaknesses they had and just not doing any of those. And that's the way to go, man. Oh, yeah.
So, if there's one thing I could see with Pop, and I wish that more people would understand, it is not simply for System76 computers. This is a distribution made to make the best desktop distribution possible. We've seen all the other distributions and the fact that the desktop is simply falling on closed ears when people complain about problems and they want a better desktop operating system, yet Red Hat focuses on server, Canonical now focuses on server. We have a revenue chain that allows us to put resources into desktop development that no other company really has.
So right now, just so you guys know, I'm also running Pop. I went Pop crazy, just because I'm doing a thing right now. Because you guys know I've been on the OpenSUSE board of directors for, what was that? Oh, this is a Space Mountain shirt. Yeah.
Oh, it's not the Pop shirt.
No, it's not the Pop shirt. I would wear the Pop shirt. However, I kid you not, I had my Pop shirt on Saturday when I was doing the install. Like, it was like an emotional thing. Let's do this all. So I've been on the OpenSUSE board for the last 2 years, right? And I've been actively involved. Let's build a great distro. But OpenSUSE has a very different goal than Pop or many others, right?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I've already decided, right? So come January, I'm not going to seek re-election for the OpenSUSE board. So I'm going to just try every cool distro that's out there for a couple weeks and see what sticks. So for me, this week is Pop week, right? So I'm like going Pop crazy. So I installed Pop on my Lenovo 11E. No problems out of the gate. Everything worked. It was great experience, as well as as my Dell XPS 13. And I know. But just so you guys know, in case anyone is wondering, if you think it would be funny to run Pop OS on a Dell XPS 13, it runs great.
It does, yes.
Silky smooth.
I'll tell you something. I own two. And the reason why is because this guy didn't release the Galago 2 in time. So I was looking for a laptop 2 years ago. The only thing out there that really met my needs, a 13-inch Ultra, was the XPS 13.
See, I got mine 13 years ago, but honestly, mine was for a different reason. I got a really good deal on mine, and I'm a notoriously cheap bastard. I am very, very cheap. So if I see something on crazy mega sale, that's what my life goes with, and hope to God it works for what I need because I'm cheap. But yeah, so I've been running Pop across the board, and I've been on OpenSUSE for I don't know how long, 5-6 years, and that's been my life. Last time I was in Denver, I was there, and I was like, so OpenSUSE on System76 hardware, and I was like kind of like nudging you guys that way and everything, and I guess in a way, I'd kind of been blinded to the desktop experience a little bit. Like, I'd enjoyed my OpenSUSE experience. I had GNOME Shell on it. It was a good experience. Mate on it. It was a good experience. But I put Pop on my machines, and the experience is much cleaner, much crisper, much less tweaky requirey. It is. I'm really impressed with that, and it's really making me giggle a fair bit, because it's like, wow, this actually is, as a desktop system, a much cleaner out of the box experience than what I'm used to. And what I'm used to, I am incredibly biased towards, because it's what I've been using and working on, and I've been like at the helm of for a couple of years.
It's ironic that a vendor is releasing, as far as I know, because I did a lot of research, working on Pop, what other distributions give with their GNOME experience. Yeah. We have the least bloatware possible. And this is coming straight from a hardware. Yeah. It makes no sense at all.
Right? You guys are running
distribution. people would
Yes.
blow their brains out. Like, this is crazy.
Right.
Where's
I mean, no one
nowhere?
does this. Like,
Where
you're
are
not
the pre-installed applications?
Where are my custom toolbars that you guys add into every web browser I've got? Like, this is absolute. It is running contrary to every basic logic that has ever existed in OEM history, which is very, very nice. Really nice job on all that. Plus, and I know you can put a theme on any system, but the theme is just right. Like, all of us as Linux nerds like to customize and tweak our user experience. This is what we've done for the last 20 years. We put on different themes, and not even that, but different theme compositing engines and tweaking it. And we use a different theme thing. We use Mutter over there, and we did this over there, and we barrel and compass, and we do everything until we get it just right. And even then, there's always one or two little elements, little design elements that, oh, that's not quite right. Or, oh, when this little shadow appears here, there's this weird clipping rectangle appears, but I can ignore it because everything else looks so choice. I haven't noticed any graphical weirdness in Pop. And that may seem like a little thing, but it's like the whole theme, every little button, every little window border, everything is just the right size. It feels good. Whoever has been working on that deserves not only a high five, but just like a deep, deep, awkwardly long bear hug, because it is just really good.
Sure, Ian would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is this mostly Ian in there?
Mostly Ian.
Well,
we also have Kate and Cassidy who
Right.
provide feedback, and everyone else, but Ian is the one writing the CSS files.
Right.
Well,
So
they're delightful.
I think what's unique about what we're doing is that we have design in house, and so when and Kate has an incredible eye for contrast and color, and so whenever we need to know whether something actually looks good, well, there's that one person we can go to help us make it beautiful. So the Pop theme, we can go back through history where it started was quite good, but then as we added and Ian made incredible progress very early on. Then we added Kate into the process, and we added Cassie in the process, and it just became better and better over time till it is what it is now. And now he's working on 3.0, which will be coming out. He wants to wait till 1804, but I don't know what
we're going to force him to release earlier.
Yeah.
We like to rolling release the stuff that we do, if possible.
Yeah, that's good.
But there are a few graphical glitches that will be fixed. So after that, I don't think there's anything. When a window is not active, when it's not focused, all of the colors need to kind of de-emphasize.
Right.
Yeah.
And right now that's not completely synced up, but
Sure.
it will be version
Sure.
3 of this.
Just for people watching who don't, so we're throwing around a couple of names, but I want to point out, so when they're talking about all the things that they're working on, so Jeremy sitting there is this guy that's like, I'm going to write everything in Rust. And he wrote a Rust operating system called Redux. There's a video he and I did, earlier this year where we talked about that. So go back and look at that. We threw around a name, Cassidy. What they're talking about is this guy named Cassidy who does a lot of the UX stuff over on Elementary OS as well. So System76 is sort of this weird mega nexus of very bizarre distro-loving, developing, OS developing, and designing people that are all kind of coming together and working on Pop and everything else.
Cognitive dissonance, where you have people who, if Cassidy or if
Is that
Jeremy
the right word, though?
hard enough, like, why aren't we installing Redux or Elementary OS on our computers?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
Yeah,
then
I'm with
you
you.
have to understand. If you take a look at Pop is kind of this weird amorphous blob of Elementary and Ubuntu and Redux mixing together in this kind of weird but perfect beach ball of love. And that's what open source is really all about. It's not about, Cassidy, he's the Elementary UX designer. He's bringing the elementary perspective to the table. No, he's the Pop designer too.
Yeah, what he's saying is that in open source we don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Is that what he meant by beach ball of love? Because I like this.
Yeah. We can be Redux, and we can be Elementary, and we can be Ubuntu, and we can be Pop, and we can be who we are. It's not one. We don't live in a vacuum, and two, most importantly, it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can
Okay.
all
Yes.
we can all build things. The amount of users that are vast and wide, and what makes Linux beautiful is that you can build something specialized for specific people. That's what proprietary operating systems cannot do.
Yeah, like you can take a piece of one operating system, put it on another. You have GNOME. We have Sri, who's the community manager here.
That's right.
Also
Why did I already forget about Sri? He's awesome. Yes.
Cassidy from Elementary, Blake from Elementary. We've got me from Redux. We've got guys who were working on NovaCut before, and now not so much anymore. They're focusing on Pop. Pop, though, is what I develop Redux on now.
That's awesome.
And like it's all about freedom. When you finally see the magic beach ball of love, you finally realize, like, having
that's a thing now, guys. That's definitely a thing.
Every single GNOME distribution on it is not really competition. It's you trying to improve what you run.
And I think in the same vein, we if our customers want to use, they buy a System76 computer and they can use whatever Linux operating system they want. We don't feel powerful competition that you have to run this or you're in the wrong place.
We can't run Windows. All right. No Windows. No Macintosh.
I see what you're saying.
Please don't.
Just emotionally.
But we do put our print on the perfectionism that we feel in ourselves, that we require of what we produce, and I think that's one of the reasons that we ended up doing Pop. Is we wanted to impact. We wanted to put that impact on what we're shipping.
Well, I tell you what, guys. This is probably the only way anyone would be able to get me to put an Ubuntu-based system on my machines again. And it worked, and I really like it a lot.
And the credit where it's due as well. There is a incredible amount that comes from Canonical and the Ubuntu. Like I said, we don't live in a vacuum, and what we're doing wouldn't really be possible without all the effort that they put into creating an incredible base.
Yeah. And GNOME, of course.
And GNOME.
And see, Elementary, because we pulled it.
Well, and the Debian and the whole stack.
Yeah.
Right. And the burger joints that fed Linus. I mean, we're not in a vacuum here. It's a beach ball of love, guys. That's just how it works.
Microsoft. They're not part of this beach ball.
Technically, what is it? They're the third largest contributor to the kernel now?
Yeah.
So technically, thank you, Microsoft, for Pop OS. Thank you for...
They contribute code so that Linux runs on their cloud so that they can make money off of Linux. Which is fine to make money off of Linux, but if they contributed, I don't know.
Yes.
It's only for their cloud. We do run Windows from time to time, though, because we're like, is battery life better on Windows? And then it's wiped as soon as possible. And we have to go do a seance and,
take a shower.
That's the one contentious part of the beach ball of love.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not every beach ball can be all happiness and love. It has to have a contentious sliver along the edge.
Beach ball who are also planning to kill the beach ball. Having it from the inside, basically. And
I like your opinionatedness, Jeremy. I like it very, very much. It rubs me in all the right ways. All right. Let's pull this back in here a little bit. Okay. So, when the patches become available to disable IME on individual models, how will people find out about that?
Our customers are going to get an email. So as we roll this out for each product, when we're rolling out to a product, the customers that have it will receive an email.
Okay.
The way it looks at them through the operating system is they get a notification that says you have a firmware update. Here's the change log. I click this. You can click to install, which will reboot your computer and install.
And you can ignore it if you want to.
You can ignore it, and you can reopen the firmware tool to see what version you have now, what version is going to be installed, and what the differences are, and choose to install at a different time.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. That's the way I want it to work. So that works good. Cool. Because I was prepared. If it wasn't going to work that way, I was going to be like, no, here's how you do it. So good.
Yeah. There was a lot of thought that went into that.
I would assume
If
so.
you go to the firmware updater,
You don't want to just wing this. You gotta do it right.
we have a architecture document system at github.com/system76/firmware-updater.
I think actually that would be. Would you mind doing an architectural overview?
Yeah.
The key signing server and
yeah,
this is a fascinating.
What I
think,
was gonna
Lay it
say
on me,
part
man.
of-
Lay it on me.
part of it.
other vendors, what they typically do, like, okay, I bought an ASRock motherboard, I put it in my chassis, I need new firmware. I'm gonna go check the FTP site. They've got something new. It's unsigned. It's not verified. It's not encrypted. It's not coming over HTTPS.
Okay.
There's no SHA-SUM that you can use. So you just download this file and you flash it, and you kind of hope that it's, one, the newest firmware, 2, for your model, and 3 is correctly verified.
And 4 even from the manufacturer.
Right. So
That's kind of an important bit.
automated that whole process. What we have is a piece of code that runs on the user's computer that determines which firmware they need.
Okay.
It reaches out to our HTTPS server and downloads the newest version of that firmware.
Okay.
It verifies it against a self-signed key, and that key is on a signing server that's actually a hardware security device.
Really?
So, yeah. So
That's kinda cool.
and the way the firmware is built is that we have multiple hardware security devices on multiple build machines. Each build machine needs to generate identical artifacts for firmware to get published.
And there's a digital display from the key signing server, so you can physically ensure that the key is the same as what the server is saying it should be.
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's
in
very
order
cool.
to release compromised firmware, they would have to compromise every build machine and the publishing machine. And they would have to replace the keys in our PPA, in the package that we provide, the System76 driver. All 4 of those locations would have to be compromised at the same time for invalid firmware to be given.
I bet Tom Cruise could do it though. Like
I've been
I mean-
planning like some kind of video showing how it could be done, just to show how ridiculous it is and how much like collusion there would have to be.
So there definitely would be someone hanging from a rope from the ceiling at
Yeah.
some point. That would have to happen.
You need someone in the inside. You need like 4 different people on the inside, actually.
It's Cassidy. It's definitely Cassidy. That guy's shady. I've always said he's shady.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah, he can. Guys, this is cool. This is cool. And you guys have a blog post up on system76.com where you guys outline some of this stuff as well. Thank you guys for doing this. I mean, I know it's in your DNA. I know it's who you is. This is your thing. So it makes sense that you're doing it. But not every hardware manufacturer is doing these things. Not every manufacturer is as committed to this as you guys are. So I appreciate it. I mean, it does. I mean, it means a lot to the consumers to know that, hey, because you're releasing it on machines you've already released. I mean, the machines are out there. People are already buying the laptops. You don't have to come along and open some things up.
Already been filled with their money. So
Right.
why are we doing this? Because we care about our reputation and we care about user security. And
That's pretty cool.
I don't think very many hardware companies care about that. Now, thankfully, there is another company, Purism, doing the same thing. And what that means is that Intel will likely provide a better way to disable the ME in the future. Dell is
great.
also providing this on a couple models, not
A
the
few.
whole line, though.
It looked like a few very specific, mostly government-related models. Yeah.
Yeah, they're giving it on 4 different models, rugged laptops, and they all cost quite a bit as the
Yeah.
base.
Like the starting price was around $4,000, and I was like, oh,
And
okay.
they're not delivering it to things in the field. So you want a new machine, you have to buy a new machine, and you have to pay $20 extra to get the ME disabled.
Yeah.
We don't believe in this. We believe that when we sell a machine, it has a lifetime warranty, and part of that lifetime warranty is that we handle security for the users, especially if it's security related to the hardware that we delivered them.
I
So-
feel like you have strong opinions about this, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like that very, very much. Also, just as a side note, really nice festive holiday season sweater you got going on.
Thank you very much.
I mean, we were here talking about our clothes, and I feel like you were left out because you were rocking just a real classy sweater.
Had I known I was going to be on today,
it was choice.
I would have gone for maybe my pop shirt too.
See, yeah. I was sitting here the whole time thinking in my head, man, I wish I'd worn some of my holiday sweaters. You know, like maybe it's time for me to start rocking that.
The high today is 36, I think.
Holy God. It's like 43 here. So it's a balmy 43 here in Portland.
2 days ago, it was 73. Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Damn. Colorado's cool. guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me and doing this. This is excellent. Keep it up. And yeah, when you guys, as this is going along, you guys will keep me posted. I'll know, and I'll let people know too, but this is friggin' fantastic. You can find out more over the system76.com. Where's their logo at? That's their logo. Of course, they sponsor the show because they're really, really good people. Here, look again. See these people here? Friendly, happy people that love freedom. They love it so much, they help sponsor this show, along with the lovely folks over at Pogo Linux, Lulspot, and viewers like you. All right, gentlemen, let's head off into the world because this was fantastic. And yeah, good job, guys. Jeremy, if you could sum up what we just talked about in one word, what would it be?
Intel ME bad. Must disable.
That was a really weirdly long hyphenated word. I accept it though. I'm going to accept it. Carl, what's your word?
Freedom.
Yeah, I'm going to go with sweater. I'm going to say
I like
sweater.
freedom more. Freedom is
freedom.
The best word.
I don't know. If you have opinions on which of these three words best represented this show, please leave comments.
I hope you cut out my word. I like freedom more.
I don't cut out anything. That would require me to edit.
Yeah.